How did the coronavirus originate? Where exactly did it stem from before wreaking havoc across the world, unleashing a once-in-a-century pandemic, changing our life as we knew it, and killing millions of people across the globe? Well, the answer to possibly the most critical question of our times remains elusive till date, thanks to the opacity and intransigence of Chinese authorities. The World Health Organization's chief, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, has yet again urged China to offer more information on the origins of COVID-19. This comes as the World Health Body is contemplating sending a second team to China to probe the matter. The genesis of the pandemic remains unclear even 4 years after the first cases emerged in China's Wuhan. Speaking to Financial Times, the World Health Organization chief said, "We are pressing China to give us full access, and we are asking countries to raise this matter during their bilateral meetings to urge Beijing to cooperate with our investigation. We have already asked them in writing to give us information and are also willing to send a team if they allow us to do so." This comes as world leaders for the first time will discuss pandemic preparedness at high-level meetings during the UN General Assembly in New York next week. The WHO chief even said that he traveled all the way to Beijing in order to convince Chinese President Xi Jinping in January 2020 to allow the first COVID-19 mission of WHO experts inside their territory. No scientific consensus has emerged on the origins of the virus. The WHO boss said, reiterating that all options remain on the table. He said, unless we get evidence beyond reasonable doubt, we cannot just say this or that. We will get the answer. It's a matter of time. On his meeting with Xi Jinping, Dr. Ghebreyesus said, and I quote, "I went and met the Chinese president. The officials below him were not willing to allow us to send a team. So I had to travel to convince the president about why this was so important. On the origin study, since they're not giving us full access, we started discussions in private, and then when they refused to cooperate, we made it public. If we know the origin, then we can prevent the next pandemic. So it's science. It'll not be morally correct if we don't know what happened." He added, "The pandemic was politicized from the beginning, and there are still no answers for all those who have paid for this pandemic." Ever since the COVID virus spread and was declared a public health emergency of international concern by the World Health Organization in January 2020, the outbreak became a pandemic in just a few weeks by March that year and caused havoc on mankind, killing millions of people and leaving many more reeling under long COVID. The COVID-19 virus was first identified in Wuhan in China in December 2019, but came to light only by January 2020, sparking global concern. The prevailing theory suggests that it may have originated in a live animal market before rapidly spreading worldwide, claiming the lives of at least 7 million people. Since then, numerous claims and counterclaims about the virus's origin have surfaced, with the WHO pushing for transparency. But the story doesn't end there. Allegations have now emerged regarding America's Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, and its role in the COVID-19 controversy. Now, some claim that several CIA analysts were paid to alter their views on the virus's origins. Stanford University professor Dr. Jayanta Bhattacharya has called for absolute transparency, stating, just what was the CIA's role? What role did they have, and why was there any interest in covering up that fact? If these allegations are correct, it is shocking. Dr. Bhattacharya emphasized that the entire world deserves to know the truth and that this issue transcends national security, becoming a matter of human rights and honesty. But even as the world continues to demand answers, the question is, will China oblige? It hasn't in all these years, as we know very well. Let's go back to Shri at this point. Shri, let's discuss this in two parts. We'll come to the allegations against the CIA or some of its analysts in a moment. But first, what Dr. Ghebreyesus has said, the WHO chief says we are contemplating sending yet another probe team to China, but they have to allow us to do so. We need full access. They haven't cooperated so far. It is no secret that China has at every step of the way done everything in its power to cover up the origins of the virus, which as we know, originated in that country and unleashed havoc around the world, uh, resulting in clearly a once in a century pandemic taking 7 million lives, and yet 4 years down the road, we still have no answers. The question really is, what can the WHO do now to put pressure on China? How do you expect China to suddenly change its mind? It's not relented over the last 4 years. And honestly, has the international community done enough to actually get some answers out of China on this very critical issue?
So, Neha, it boggles my mind that a pandemic which has killed 7 million people has cost the world $9 trillion. That's 3 times the GDP of India, $9 trillion in economic output. Has not been investigated properly. It has not been allowed to be investigated properly by only one country, China. In fact, after the first reports broke out of this kind of a infection, of this kind of a pandemic in 2019, December, the doctor who blew the lid on this, who raised the alarm, saying that I'm seeing patients coming in with this sort of symptoms, and this seems, highly contagious. What did the Chinese government do? It just asked him to shut up. He was made to lie low. And then poor man died of COVID himself. Even after China knew that this was a highly contagious disease that they were dealing with, they did not tell the world, Neha. So as a result, thousands of Chinese were merrily traveling outside of China. People were coming into China. And that is the only reason why this contagious disease could spread so easily to other parts of the world and nearly shut down the world for repeatedly, and not once but twice, but repeatedly it shut down the world. So Neha, it is shocking that China refused to collaborate, refused to allow a CDC, a WHO, or other European CDC to come in and look at the origin of the virus. So as a result, humanity will never know what really caused the COVID-19 pandemic. Was it, as China says, a zoonotic transmission from its fresh meat market in Hunan? Or was it actually a lab leak? Or was it even, as some have suggested, some conspiracy theorists have suggested, a bioweapon which was probably being tested, and that went out of hand? So we will never know the reality, Neha. Very, very unfortunate. And I blame WHO, and I also blame the world community for this, because I don't think enough pressure was brought on China. 7 million people are killed, and we don't have enough sanctions being put on China for its behavior. That's utterly shocking to my mind. Now, WHO says that we will send another team. What will you do after 4 years? The lab has been completely cleaned. The market was cleaned on January 1st, 2020. Days after the incident happened. So what is WHO going to do going inside? They'll have nothing. It's like going into a crime scene 4 years later, figure out, to collect evidence. This is utter bullshit. I think WHO has completely failed. I think China owes it to the world to disclose what it knows. And I'm 100% sure it knows how the transmission really happened, how this, completely went out of hand. So I think China owes it to the world to tell them with clarity, what really happened.
Well, China certainly owes it to the world, because this is not a matter that was at any point in time confined to China alone. It unleashed this pandemic on the world. I don't think there is a single person on this planet who remained unaffected by this planet, and that includes people like you and me. We've all paid a price in varying degrees for a pandemic that was unleashed on the world by China, which refuses to be accountable, which refuses to give us any answers. And you're quite right, the World Health Organization has indeed failed, all of us, because not only did it not put enough pressure on China to get the answers that, we needed, but it also took the longest time, if you recall, Shri, to even declare it as a public health emergency. For the longest time, they kept playing it down, saying, it's nothing serious, we're keeping an eye on it. And next thing we knew, the entire world was under a lockdown. But now coming to the conspiracy theories. Yes, there are plenty of conspiracy theories about the origins. Was it a lab leak? Was it a bioweapon? I don't know if we'll ever know the answers, but there have also been conspiracy theories aplenty about whether there were enough people in positions of power, not just in China, but even outside of it, including in the United States, who knew what was going on and chose to look the other way. Now, I distinctly recall that there were allegations of this nature made even against somebody like Dr. Anthony Fauci, the chief medical advisor, former chief medical advisor to the US president, and at that time who was considered the foremost infectious diseases expert in the world and the COVID expert in the world. I remember interviewing him at the peak of the COVID pandemic in 2021. I asked him about those controversial emails that had surfaced and which were being referred to. And at the time when he was accused of being part of a cover-up, he rubbished all those allegations. But now come these claims that there were CIA analysts who were paid to alter their views on the origins of the virus. What more do we know about this, Shri? Is there any credence whatsoever to these claims that are being made, or is it just one of the million conspiracy theories that have been doing the rounds over the last 4 years since the pandemic erupted?
So Neha, right now these are just allegations. I don't think unless the United States government investigates this and comes to a conclusion, I don't think we'll ever know if these allegations are really true in terms of CIA analysts covering up. But Neha, let's ask ourselves, why did so many conspiracy theories come about in the first place? What was the need? It came about only because the opacity of China refusing to tell the world what really went on, or sharing any kind of data which would allow scientists from around the world, not just American scientists, but European scientists, Indian scientists, or Latin American scientists from around the world to come together and study the data and come to a conclusion. It is China's single-minded refusal to share any kind of data on this, which led to the emergence of these hundreds of conspiracy theories. Neha, what China should have done if it wanted to kill all these theories is simply to have come out and said, no, this is what happened. This was actually a zoonotic transmission that happened from our wet market in Wuhan. And we, and this is the data that we have to prove it. So kill the theory. But China refused to do it because at some level, it also gained from, these confusion, these conflicting theories come about because, you would never really know if China was really to blame, if the regulations, the market were lax, if the rules regarding keeping live animals or avoiding selling of certain kinds of meat, if those rules were violated. So China essentially doesn't want to take the blame. So that is why it has kept all this data away from the world, and it enjoys all these theories, conflicting theories often that come, and then you'll have these other conspiracy theories being floated from time to time, saying that, oh, this agency did the cover-up, this other agency did the cover-up. But I think the biggest cover-up was done is by China, no one else, Neha.
There is no doubt about that. But then again, the question that we need to ask is, will China ever be held accountable?